Hi guys, and welcome back to Bite Size Excel. In today's video we're going to look at text split. Now we've looked in a previous video at using things like, if we go to the data tab here, text to columns to split out data that's in a mess into different columns. We've also looked at things like using Power Query to sort out complex large data sets and tidy them up a bit. But today we're going to look at one of the newer functions, which is the text split function, as I mentioned. We also looked in a recent video at text join, which joins together different cells of text. This is the opposite. It splits out data from a single cell. So in this instance, we've got this list of names here. That's a complete and utter mess. So we want to split them out. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at text split. So we type in text split. Now this is one of our new dynamic array formulas. And the first thing you need to do is you need to tell it the data you want to split out. So that's this cell B2. The next bit is your column delimiter. Now this is the bit you want to split it out into different columns by. So for example, I'm going to use comma with a space here because all my full stops and commas and everything in there have a space after them. I'm going to close my inverted commas and I'm going to hit enter. And you can see here that wherever it had a comma, it has split it out. Now that's not particularly useful because in this data set here, we've got things like not just commas, but full stops and semicolons. However, text split does let you use multiple delimiters, and this is what makes it much more useful than text to columns, or at least it's one of the reasons it's more useful. And to do this, what we need to do is we need to wrap up this in some curly brackets. So we're going to use our comma. Our next one, open our bracket, is going to be a full stop with a space after it, and then we're going to have a semicolon with a space after it and close that up. Close our curly brackets and hit enter. And you can see there it's split out all the different words. Now you can also make text split not just split into columns, but it can split into rows. So if we come in here, you'll see that the third one is a row delimiter. Now it's an optional parameter. In these square brackets, they're all optional. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stick an extra comma in here. So our column delimiter is blank and the row delimiter now becomes the other one, and hit enter. And you can see now all those have been split out into rows instead of columns. This can be even more useful. If you'll notice in this data set, the first name and second name is split by a comma, and then the individual people are split by either a full stop or a semicolon. So I can actually split this data set out in an even cleverer way. And I do that by essentially saying, well, I want to split my first name and second name into different columns. So that's by the comma, so that goes into my column delimiter. And then for my row delimiter, I want to wrap up both the full stop and the semicolon in these curly brackets. And I'm going to hit enter, and you can see then we have nicely our surname in this first one and our first name in this second column. Now the other parameters in text split, if we just click into it, are one for whether you want to ignore if there are empty bits, so you can ignore empty cells or include them. The match mode is whether it is case sensitive or not. And the pad width bit here at the end is essentially if these aren't all the same number of columns, it will be putting not applicables in. Oh, hang on, I'll just do an example. So let me just come out of that. We'll go in here. And what we'll do is we'll say it's Oliver John Smith and hit enter. You'll see now that because this has 3 columns, the empty cells in all the columns that only have 2 values are showing up as not applicable. So to get rid of that, what we do is we use our pad width. So if we come over to the end one and say, I just want to pad width a blank and hit enter, you'll no longer get those not applicables. And then once you get your values split out the way you want, you can obviously paste special if you just want them in as actual values rather than this built array. That's just been a very brief introduction to the text split function. I hope that you found it useful and learned something new. Remember to like and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in a future video.